Hey, what's up, everybody? DFS 5-pack here. Ryan Kostrowski, Matthew Bellman, owners and operators of this bad boy. If you're new to the station, click that red button that says subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications to new videos. Typically, the channel is dedicated mostly to DFS, daily fantasy sports for the layperson. But with quarantine active and no sports going on, we are getting an early jump on the fantasy football season. We've talked to Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, David Johnson, DK Metcalf, and this will be the fifth video where we are going to highlight Le'Veon Bell. Haven't gotten your thoughts on him quite yet, but I'm interested to talk him out.
Yeah, me too, man. I was pumped when you brought him up. I think I know where you stand on him because I know a lot of times the way you think, and I think we'll be on the same page here. But likewise, I'm very interested to talk this one out with you.
Right? It's another guy. He's younger than you realize too, right? Like he feel like he's been around for so long that he'd be like 30, 31, and he's not.
No, he's not. And this is another guy where last year I hated that he had all that time off that he had the year before off. But at this point now, it's like less wear on his tread, you know?
Definitely. So subscribe, like I said, subscribe and thumbs up is appreciated. So, what has changed and what has stayed the same going into year two with the New York Jets? Same coach. It's Gase's second year, and the coordinator, Logan's, or however you pronounce his last name, it's his second year. As far as injury concerns go, he knocked the dust off a little bit last year after sitting out the year. His age, I mean, he's not young, but he's not this, he's not 30 or 31 or anything like that. So he's not coming off any major injuries last year.
Yeah, he's not like, a dinosaur. He's certainly not like young when you consider like young backs, but I still think that he's got some left in him. And you're right. I think that there is no like major injury concern when you look at him.
So for me, the hardest part about getting on board Le'Veon Bell this year is if you watched him last season, he looked terrible. I mean, part of it was the system, the players around him. I'm sorry, though, like watching him, and I don't watch a ton of the Jets, so I don't want to sit here and tell you I watched all 245 of his carries, but it was really unimpressive. 3.2 yards per carry. Long rush of the year, 19 yards. That's silly bad.
It's crazy. It's hard to even wrap your head around that. His long was 19 yards. So it is similar to another guy we just talked about in David Johnson, in the sense that, I mean, they're almost two peas in a pod here, just in the sense that each of these guys is going to be given ample opportunity to prove and to show that they're the guy. I know the Jets just signed Frank Gore as kind of like a touchdown vulture, but we don't expect Gore to see a ton of carries at all. I mean, he's like 60 years old.
Yeah, you want to talk about dinosaurs? That's a dinosaur.
Impressive career, but a dinosaur nonetheless. So you're right. He looked awful last year, but the opportunity is going to be there this year. The opportunity specifically in the passing game. I like Sam Darnold another year in. I think they made like a lateral move at wide receiver, losing Robbie Anderson, getting Denzel Mims. Maybe you lose a little bit because a rookie wide receiver, you never know what you're going to get. My biggest problem with Le'Veon Bell, aside from what you talked about and that he just looked bad last year, I'm still not sure I really want to trust this Jets offense.
Yeah, that's a big problem with it. And again, I'm a Le'Veon Bell fan. I've talked about this a million times before. I played running back in high school, which I feel like for me, it just gives me an extra appreciation for that position. Doesn't mean I know everything about it or anything like that. I feel like if you played a certain spot or if there was something you were good at or just experienced at growing up, it always makes you like that a little bit more. I played catcher in baseball in center field. Like those are the positions I feel like I have a better understanding of, but also just more appreciative of. The same thing goes for running back. And I love his patience that he shows. The problem is like he just isn't hitting those holes last year. And, the Jets offense around him was not good. It's not like he had tons of opportunity to score touchdowns, but the eye test, which is something I know you're real big on, was extremely unimpressive last year. The big question is, does he have anything left in the tank? Can he get it back? Second-year coach, second-year coordinator, second year in the system. Will there be rooms for improvement, or is he just done? That's a tough one to scout out right now.
Yeah, we don't know the answer to that question. We can only make, as much of an educated guess as we can. Just real quick for you, who do you like more this year, David Johnson or Le'Veon Bell?
David Johnson.
I think it's close.
You said earlier in this video They are both going to be given ample opportunity in order to, kind of get the lion's share of the carries and do the work. I am a bigger believer in David Johnson because Coach O'Brien is really kind of locked that in, is got an even longer leash.
I agree with that. When I said that, I thought about that same thing. There is no one that you feel like that has as long of a leash as David Johnson does.
Well, and the other thing is, like, they have Frank Gore. Again, Frank Gore is not what he once was, but he can take 10 carries a game, and he can take some goal line carries. The other thing is, what do you know about this kid out of Florida, the running back they took in the 4th round?
I'm hearing that he's kind of just like a project type addition. That I don't expect him to play a big role this year. Obviously, that could change if he wows everyone. For me, though, it's the Gore signing that really kind of eats into Le'Veon Bell. But for Bell, it's all about like what you said. If he looks like the Le'Veon Bell from the Pittsburgh days, I mean, he could be one of the best running backs in all fantasy football next year. However, there's a big downside as well.
It's been 2 years since we've seen him look good, and that year off, it can affect people different ways. It's hard to take into how much of it was him and how much was the Jets, and that's something that's difficult for us to say when you're playing at the highest level like this. The littlest things can be a detractor to you. I am very, very concerned about Le'Veon Bell. I liked him a little bit last year. I think I ended up with him on one team. I was wrong. He was bad. He was a really, really bad way to spend your money or spend your draft pick last year.
He was bad, but I'll say I don't want to give him a mulligan because you can't give him a mulligan. He looked bad. But I said this at the beginning of the show. I feel like that last year was a bad spot for him. And you talked about it all year, just having missed the season, missed a ton of time, training camp, all that, aside from having missed the whole year. Now another year under his belt, you're right. He doesn't have as much, he doesn't have as long of a leash as David Johnson, but damn near no one does. He's still got a pretty long leash. They're paying him good money. They paid him good money, and he is a big part of their offense if he's playing well. It's risky, and I don't love him, but I think there's definite upside.
And I don't know anything about this Perine kid from the running back out of Florida, but it's a 4th round pick. And you mentioned this the other day in regard to a 3rd, and obviously a 4th is 1 round later than a 3rd. I get that. But they used a draft pick on a running back, and not a 7th rounder, a 4th rounder, kind of right there in the middle. So maybe they're a little curious, and his contract is massive. And I didn't look up the logistics of when they can get out of it, or if he could be trade bait or anything like that. But the Jets are a long ways away from being a championship contender. If at any point over the next season or two they can get away from him, what's that?
Says you think they're a long way away. If you ask the people in the Jets, I mean, NFL changes so much year to year. I don't think that they would say that they're so far away, personally.
What would you say?
I mean, I would say that, again, if they went 10-6 this year, I wouldn't be surprised. Tennessee made the championship game in the AFC last year. My point is rested. Case rested.
All right. Tennessee's better than the Jets.
I mean, not going in year last year with Ryan Tannehill. No, they weren't.
I mean, what if the Jets? I mean, when was the last time the Jets were decent?
I'm not sure.
Okay. It's been a while. You're right about the lateral moves at wide receiver, too, losing Robbie Anderson. They signed Perryman.
What's up? I think they upgraded at wide receiver. I forgot they signed Perryman. I think Perriman's just as good as Robbie Anderson, and then adding Denzel Mims. I like those additions. I think they've added stuff to their offense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They got a tackle in the 1st round, too.
Mm-hmm. I don't know much
that can't hurt at all.
I don't know much about the guys they took from Florida, but I'm always fans of guys from Florida because the best athletes are usually from Florida.
Yeah, at least when it comes to football, baseball too, a little bit. No doubt about it. So I would say there's no major significant upgrades here as of right now. This Mims kid, from everything you've told me, a couple things I've heard about him, he could be good. I don't put a lot of faith in first-year wide receivers, but it doesn't mean it couldn't happen. But it definitely didn't get worse, right?
Agreed wholeheartedly with everything you said.
So as a Jets fan, if you can not get worse, that's got to be a good thing right now because you guys have been trashed for several years straight. And, hopefully Sam Darnold can take the next step if you are a Jets fan. I don't think they are a contender this year. And I will say that I'll repeat the conviction I had earlier. I give them zero chance to come out, to beat the Baltimores and the Kansas Cities of the world.
I'd give them more than zero chance for sure. I think Baltimore specifically has way too much hype. And again, every year Like, this is why they play the games. Like, you would never. It's just, teams do things that you would never expect. I know that it's hard. It's hard for someone like you to like wrap your head around that because you're like, they're the favorites. They're going to beat. You know what I mean? But it just doesn't always work out like that. The Jets, I think, are very much a sleeper team, especially if Darnold could take another step.
Okay.
Like, in a weak division, there's no reason why that Buffalo is so much better than the Jets.
Better defense, better offense, better
Based
quarterback.
Break that down. Is Josh Allen a better quarterback? I'm not sure. I'd probably rather have Darnold on my team, to be honest.
Come on, man.
Are you kidding me?
Be honest with the public crowd. I'm sitting here telling you that through the early part of their career,
doesn't make them wrong. I'm just going to tell you that. Josh
Allen, based on what you've watched.
Yeah,
sure, but do you really think that the early portion? You think that Sam Darnold has been more impressive through 2 seasons than Josh Allen?
No, I don't think it's really big difference one way or the other. I think that Josh Allen's had a much better running game, a better defense, like you said. I think Sam Darnold definitely has a better arm. Not even a question.
Okay, better arm.
Better in the pocket. Better arm. It's not as good of an athlete. But if I want a quarterback that I think is going to lead me to a Super Bowl, it's Sam Darnold.
Okay. Well,
I think a lot of people would agree with me.
I'll happily put a gentleman's wager on Buffalo having a better record than the Jets this year.
That's not what we just said. That's not what I just said. I mean, it's not even about Buffalo versus the Jets. I just don't think that Buffalo is like some Super Bowl team and the Jets are that much behind. I think that, again, a lot changes from year to year. It's hard for you to wrap your head around that, but it's true.
Sure. It's not hard for me to wrap my head around that. I completely understand the NFL changes on a yearly basis, but it's also, we can't just say that we like all 32 teams to have an equal 3% chance to go to the Super Bowl.
Did I say that?
No, but you can't. You can make your evaluations, you can make your picks and stuff like that, but we have to actually make picks and not just say it's wide open. You know what I mean? Like, who do you believe? We haven't talked about the Jets at all this year as being a Super Bowl contender. And if that's something you believe, that's great.
Right now, I think they could definitely come out of the AFC East. I see no reason why they can't. Give me one reason why the Jets could not come out of the AFC East.
I never said they couldn't come out of the AFC East, but we were talking about coming out of the AFC. I mentioned them being Super
Bowl. Well, isn't Buffalo in the
AFC year, and I don't think that they are.
Isn't Buffalo in the AFC East?
Buffalo is in the AFC East, and I would happily bet on Buffalo coming out of the AFC before the Jets. That doesn't mean I don't think the Jets have a possibility. I didn't say it was a lock, but I don't think the Jets have any better chance to come out of the AFC East than Buffalo. Possibly, even New England, I would give them a better chance. And I think they're probably right there with Miami.
I think that they're probably ranked third below New England, who I would still put first, then Buffalo, and then the Jets. But I think that all 3 of those teams are close. The Jets are a team that wouldn't surprise me if they go 4-12. I'm not trying to bet on their record. I just think that with Sam Darnold another year in, with Le'Veon Bell potentially healthy, I like the additions they made at wide receiver. They're healthy on defense. I can't remember the linebacker they signed from Baltimore last year that they paid a ton of money. His name's slipping my head, but he was hurt all of last year. They're finally healthy. I don't see them as just a team that has no chance to do anything. I think that there's only a few teams you can say that about. And yeah, it's, I don't think we have to pick a team. I mean, that's what the conversation is about. It is wide open because nothing's even started yet.
Well, I did not mean to personally offend you by saying that I don't think the Jets are going to be very good this year. I'm sorry.
You did not. Don't worry about
that. Got you a little riled up this morning. I like that. Wow, so we could talk some football the rest of the day. Getting back to our thoughts on Le'Veon Bell. So looking up where he's being talked about right now, where people would have him going, out of all the guys that we've talked about so far, I'm finding him to have the biggest gap. I'm finding him to be up there at the end of the 3rd round for some people, all the way down to early in the 6th round. Again, we've kind of talked about it. The eye test from last year, he didn't look good. There are reasons that maybe he didn't look good and maybe there's something left. And again, it's also possible that sitting out a year, not being, in a perfect position or anything like that, he's not going to achieve anything close to what we saw in Pittsburgh. Where is he in your mind as far as rankings goes? Where would you want to take him if you were doing a snake draft in a PPR league?
I'm seeing him, I just looked at ESPN's mock draft, and I see him in the 3rd round.
Yep.
going
That was the early parts of where I saw him, and then I saw some places saying don't take him till the 6th or the 7th. So it was all over.
I think that I have no problem taking him in round 3, knowing that he could. I mean, he's very much like David Johnson, who David Johnson went in round 2 here. Yeah. I'd rather have Le'Veon Bell for a round later than David Johnson. I think they're very similar, and I agree with you. I'd rather have David Johnson probably at the same spot, but I'd rather have Le'Veon Bell 1 round later.
And the thing about both of these guys, and we've talked about this ad nauseum when it comes to running backs, I mean, they might just both be done. There might be a lot more name here from a couple of years ago than there is anything. For all we know, Bell gets outperformed by this 4th-round kid out of Florida. For all we know, the Texans can't get anything out of David Johnson, and Duke Johnson's getting more touches by the end of the year. Running back is such a weird position. So I was thinking about this the other day when I thought we were going to make this video, but we both got a little busy the last couple of days. Like, can you think of any running back off the top of your head over the past 10 years that has been really successful on the second team that he went to?
Really successful on the second team he went to?
It's a tough question because there are some from like 20 years ago.
It's a good question, man.
It's a very unique position on any sport because these rookie contracts they get these guys under, you just don't see a lot of people succeed. Like, I have very little confidence in Todd Gurley doing much for Atlanta.
He was right there with Le'Veon Bell there. Who do you like more, Gurley or Bell?
Gurley. Plays for a better offense. So, like, I think he's got a better opportunity to score touchdowns.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, he plays in that dome with, he's got some good offensive players around him. He can take 15 touches a game, but score, dozen touchdowns this year pretty easily.
So one thing I will say, because we talked about Leonard Fournette, I don't even remember what video that was. I don't even think it was one of these player videos. But, one thing I like about Fournette, even though I'm not huge on him this year, he's in the 3rd round right here, like with Le'Veon Bell, Gurley, Melvin Gordon only a few picks later. Like, Fournette's
I did not get Melvin Gordon right there.
Well, one thing I'll say, Fournette is not done. Like, all those other guys might be done.
Yeah. So that's one thing about him. The other guy the only thing for me as far as running backs that have been successful recently was Marshawn Lynch.
Oh, yeah, it's a good one.
And even that was like a little bit of a different situation because Buffalo moved on to him for behavioral issues. It had really nothing to do with lack of production and lack of talent. So there was him.
Who else?
I was like going back to guys like Jamal Lewis. He had an okay season for Cleveland, right?
Yeah, he had a good year for Cleveland. Yeah.
So there.
That's a rare one, though. That's a really good question. I'm trying to think about.
Like even guys like Priest Holmes, who was, he's the definition of a modern day running back in the essence that like his ceiling was really high, but it was only for a couple of years. I know he had one decent season for Baltimore, if I remember correctly. And then like the 3 really good years for Kansas City, and then he was just done.
Yeah.
But even that was over 15 years ago.
The one guy that comes to mind, and this guy's old, is Marshall Faulk.
Yes. Yeah. And that was another one. That's why I kind of came up with the last over 10 years because I was looking up Faulk stats the other day. And even he only played 2 years in India, right?
I didn't know that.
I thought it was 2 or I couldn't remember if it was 2 or 3 off the top of my head, but it was a shorter time period for the Colts than I had realized. But even this was, 20 years ago.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to think about like the best running backs right now that are on like their second team. Mark Ingram.
That's why it's so okay. He's pretty good still. And that's why it's so hard for me to really picturing David Johnson or Le'Veon Bell having these monster years. Of course, it's possible. These guys were masters of their craft a few years ago, but you just don't see a lot of running backs who are no-shows for a couple of seasons and then all of a sudden go off again. It's rare.
Yeah, it is rare. The running backs only have such a short shelf life also. So, yeah, you're right. It's a good call there.
And every time I think about that, I just remember getting my butt beaten in playing high school football, running scout offense and then going flipping around and playing offense on the other side. It's just getting pummeled over and over again by people bigger than you and why that just adds up to these guys on their body. And the thing is, they've been doing this for 8 years before they even got here. Well, maybe not 8, 6, we'll say.
Yeah. It is crazy. Man, I'll tell you that I'm looking at the beginning of this round 1 draft. It's like, if I pick late in the first round, I'm really not sure who I want.
Yeah, I think we agree that CMC and Saquon are clear-cut 1-2.
Yeah.
And that's why like a guy like a Michael Thomas seems like such a safe play in the first round.
I agree.
Specifically in PPR formats.
For sure. So I put like Dalvin Cook, and I see that in this draft they have Cook second and Zeke fourth. I agree. It's Saquon second for me for sure. I don't hate one of the running backs there just because it's a running back. And,
Zeke or Cook?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're both solid, right? I mean, if you're there at the 3, 4, 5 picks, how do you not consider those guys? With Cook, you obviously then you handcuff him with Madison because Madison's real good. And if one of those guys were to be injured, you're going to get a bell cow type of work. Again, that's where my problems with David Johnson and Bell come up, is like really just thinking about how many times in history have we seen guys not be good for a few years, take a year off, be injured, come back, different team, and then dominate. It's rare.
Now that you said that, I'm going to have a hard time getting that out of my head. And that's the other argument for taking receivers or running backs early. Then you don't have to deal with those guys. Like, even guys like I see at the top of the second round here, like I know you like Kenyon Drake a lot. You did last year. You think he's really good. And I like Eckler a lot. They're both going at the top of the second round.
Yeah, that's again, I do a lot of auction drafts, and I hate saying this on videos because half the people in my leagues watch these videos. I'm going to be spending my money on McCaffrey or Saquon this year.
Same. I mean, there's one of them specifically I want, and I will be getting him.
Right, and then that way I only have to spend one other pick on a really good running back, and then I'm done, and I can work on my receivers and my quarterbacks. It's all about strategy to me in that essence of making sure that like you get that bell cow running back, because we both know McCaffrey and Saquon will take the lion's share of the carries out of their team, assuming they're healthy and everything like that. And they're both really good and really good at the passing game. So you just feel comfortable with that at your RB1. Now, if I got to spend $75 in an auction draft to bump that up for the $56 that Zeke goes, I'm comfortable with that right now.
Now, of course, it always gets to the point where it's like, how much is too much? Like, what if there's someone out there, two people out there that like not want, but want them even more than we do. Like they're willing to just spend whatever it takes, and that's always in consideration,
Yeah, man. Like if on like the ESPN auctions where you get, I think it's a $200 budget for football teams, and usually your top tier running backs are usually projected in like 60, and then they'll usually go 60 to 70, sometimes a little bit more than that.
Right.
For me, like if you're going to go up to 67, how much does it really change your draft to go up to 73 or 74 when it comes to a McCaffrey or Saquon? Now, if they're going up to 85, that's a different story.
That's what I was saying, like 80. Like that's like a good cutoff point where it's like you have to really be dedicated.
And I've seen it happen. It doesn't normally go that direction, but I've definitely seen it happen. And then you got to really, really slow down. The biggest mistake you can make in auction drafts, though, is not spending your money early and waiting to get quote-unquote deals. And the next thing you know, you don't have any studs. I know because my worst NFL draft ever in an auction that's exactly what I did. And then remember my buddy Dan I talk about all the time?
Yeah.
2 seasons later, he did the same thing, and he ended up like whatever it was, like 4-9 or something. It wasn't good. And we remember his draft mimicked what I did, where you just want your deal so bad you don't buy anybody up top. And the next thing you know, all the studs are gone.
Yeah, and like you think there'll be studs for a while, but there aren't that many studs, and that's the whole point.
No. Especially the day of the 2 running back systems. I mean,
yes.
And there just aren't that many studs these days. Like Saquon's a stud. McCaffrey's a stud. I still consider Zeke a stud. Cook is a stud. Michael Thomas is a stud. Devontae Adams. And I mean, Julia. And now we're starting to get low.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm with you.
So, ultimately, I guess if I had to make my call on this, we talked about it. You said you saw him going late in the third. It's kind of what I said here, 30 to 60 being the late end, 30 being the high end. I probably wouldn't personally target Le'Veon Bell till 50th or so. I'm just not that gung-ho on him this year, I guess.
Okay, let's play a little, compare, who would you rather have?
Okay.
Le'Veon Bell or Devin Singletary?
Well, right now, I think Devin Singletary is a better, more explosive runner of the football, but I'm really struggling to think about, like, they just don't seem very comfortable giving him a large number of touches. So the ceiling for Bell has got to be significantly higher. Like, if I'm wrong and he plays much better this year, his ceiling has just got to be so much higher.
I'm with you. I view that similarly.
I forget who the Buffalo, did they draft somebody or they grab free agents to be
like in the second round?
Yeah, so clearly this is a
Yes.
1-2 punch for them. Whereas if Bell plays well, he gets 90% of the touches.
Exactly. Agreed. Bell or Raheem Mostert?
Again, I think right now Mostert's a better runner of the football, but man, they got so many mouths to feed in San Francisco. Probably Bell. Just again, if he plays better and I'm wrong, his ceiling is so much higher.
Bell or Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Give me Clyde. That offense is going to put up 30 points every game.
I know you don't know much about him, but still, like, what more do you really need to know that he's the running? The Chiefs drafted him in the first round, right?
Well, exactly, and that's where, like, eye test is good to have, and it's good to know something about players. But I know that the Chiefs, who are clearly a well-run organization, drafted a running back early. That's all I need to know, right? I mean, that gives me enough bullets in my gun right there to feel pretty comfortable that this kid's got some real upside this year.
Wholeheartedly agree.
And I mean, if the Chiefs, like, I don't always like teams coming off the Super Bowl, but like Mahomes is healthy all year, and like Travis Kelce is like right at the top of his prime. Tyreek Hill can only really get better. He hasn't lost his athleticism. Another year of being healthier and potentially maybe even becoming a better wide receiver. I mean, this offense, if they score 35 points a game, are you surprised?
No, not at all. I'm interested to see how they play.
Not at all.
I'm interested to see how they play as like the hunted. But like on that same token, like they've kind of been the hunted though because of Mahomes. Like everyone knows how good Mahomes is. Like it's not like teams last year before knew that they had to bring their best effort to beat Kansas City. So it's not they snuck under the radar. I heard Travis.
It was about 5 games into the year, right, where people were basically starting to jerk off Mahomes. And
yeah, you're right.
They've kind of been since then.
Yeah, it's a good point. So yeah, if there's any team that looks like they could, win a couple more at least Super Bowls, it's Kansas City.
Man, obviously we're a little bit off topic here, but we have time and we like talking sports, and there's not a lot to talk about. Like, what if, like, in your mind, for the next 3 years, Kansas City goes to 2 more Super Bowl? Let's just say they win 1, lose 1. Mahomes wins another MVP and is like 2nd and 3rd the next 2 years. Like, at that point, can you start talking about him? And like, let's just say like the eye test passes with flying colors like it has the first 2 seasons. At that point, can you start talking about him as the greatest quarterback of all time?
It's hard because it'd only be like his 4th or 5th year. But yeah, if he wins those, so I guess my answer to that question, like, if he wins those Super Bowls, like you said, and he looks that good, like, what would have to happen to him to not be considered one of the best ever? Like, why is it just going to stop? Like, are you saying if he just, like, retired or, like, if he got worse or, I guess explain your question a little bit deeper.
Okay, so here's one where, we have our little discussions back and forth, and you can't really give an answer one way or the other. But, like, let's just say, like, he's dominant for the next 3 years. And we'll talk 1 or 2 MVPs, 1 or 2 Super Bowls, whether he wins or he's there. But let's just say it's much of what we've seen the last 2 seasons, right? Where even when they lost to New England, they looked like the better team for a lot of it, right?
Yes, but I do think that matters, though, whether they're winning it or like coming just short. So just going to say that, but go ahead.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to say exactly what we're talking about. But if we see 3 more years of dominance where we've got at least 1 MVP and 1 more Super Bowl win, then it's like, to me, like, you have to start putting him in that conversation already. And then people will be like, well, he hasn't done it for this long. You can't project him out that way. Sure. But I've seen 5 seasons of greatness. I can't project him to suck all of a sudden either.
Agreed. That's exactly how I view it. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's like, yeah, he definitely would be. I mean, he's already in the conversation, like we already talked about him in that regard. So like, yeah, I think if he does this for more years and he's even better, I mean, yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah, basically, if you give me 3 more seasons of Patrick Mahomes, what he's done these first 2 years, and there's got to be some hardware in there. Like, I'm talking like at least one MVP, which
Yes.
I would bet with confidence at this point. He's probably going to
He's
get
the
that
best
anyway. Yeah, I agree. He's amazing. And one Super Bowl win. So he's got to get to that second Super Bowl because then at that point, you're beating Aaron Rodgers. You're tied with Peyton Manning, but I think most of us don't really give Peyton as much credit for the second Super Bowl. You're tied with John Elway, but even his 2 Super Bowls are a little bit more Terrell Davis than anything. So, I mean, it'd be tough not to throw him up there.
I agree, man. In fact, he's already got one of each, an MVP and a Super Bowl trophy. Like, he's only started, 3 years? 2 years?
2 years.
2 years. He only started 2 years. Like, man, I remember when he was drafted, like, no one thought he was going there. Yeah. Maybe the best draft pick of all time in the NFL. Like, one of them.
Right. Right. Like, so I took him like every year-long fantasy league last year. I liked him, but I never expected this, right? Like, sometimes, like, you feel like you're right, but you were right. You never expected this. So I didn't call for anything like that. I just thought that they would put up some points under Andy Reid. This has been amazing to watch it. Right. Like, they liked him a lot, but you didn't expect this. Because this is just greatness.
This, you trade up to number 1 overall, no matter what it takes to get him. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. You want my next 3 seasons of first-round picks? Done. Here you go.
Exactly. I mean, if he changed franchise, there's like no one in sports that would switch, really change things as much as him. I guess guys in the NBA, but it's different there.
Okay, so you want to know how good Patrick Mahomes is? This is a video on Le'Veon Bell. We spent the second half talking about Patrick Mahomes.
Hey, man.
He's so good. He's so much fun to watch. I wish he was our Packers quarterback, but hey, that's not the case. So
it's nice after I got all defensive earlier about the Jets that we can finish on something we agree with.
Yeah, that Patrick Mahomes is good. And if you don't agree with us, you're wrong.
Yeah, agreed.
That's not even an argument. Yeah, that's just a fact. This kid's awesome. I'm glad he's in the AFC though, so I don't have to compete against him every single year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not even like worried about that as a Browns fan because hopefully we're competing with him.
Right?
He beats you, but I hope we're at that point.
Well, it would suck to think as a Raiders or Broncos or Chargers fan, like, dude, I got to play this guy twice a year for the next 15 years. Like, how are we supposed to win the division with this cat around? Not saying it's impossible and they're going to win the division every year, but it sucks.
Not going to lie, though, like, kind of feeling that way as a Browns fan right now with Lamar Jackson, a healthy Ben Roethlisberger, and, like, if Joe Burrow is legit, like,
sure,
I'm lightweight scared about the Browns because if they don't take another step this year, like, if they don't take the step this year, big problems, as always. So,
well, I'll tell you these things then to make you feel a little bit better. Ben's close to being done, right? If he even has anything left, it's not much. It's just, Father Time's undefeated. He's had enough injuries in his career. His will to win seems lower. So, again, he's pretty much done. As much as we think Burrow's going to be amazing, we don't know that. We haven't seen him play it down in the NFL. I mean, I think you'd bet on him to be good, but you don't know that for sure. And as much as I like Lamar Jackson, you're not nearly as big of a fan. So there's the optimist side of it. It's not as scary as having Patrick Mahomes in your division.
Agreed. I would rather have the plethora of Burrow, Jackson, and Roethlisberger than Mahomes. There's no group I'd rather have. Mahomes is like the ultimate guy you don't want in your division. Right. But I'm worried about those 3 quarterbacks this year specific. Well, I guess the one thing that's good is Burrow will be a rookie, and by the time he's good, Roethlisberger will be done.
Ben is going to play this year, but he might be done right now. This guy's had a lot of injuries. He's getting older. He's got a lot of new pieces coming in. I'm not saying he's going to be trash this year. I'm just saying, I don't know for a fact. I don't say with good confidence we're ever going to see the Big Ben from 5 years ago.
I agree. He's definitely an unknown. He also has a big history of being a lot better at home. So he hasn't always been this great guy on the road.
I'm not scared of Ben Roethlisberger anymore. If you ask me to rank the top 10 quarterbacks going into the season, I don't think he'd be in mine.
Top 10 quarterbacks going into the season.
Right, like Mahomes.
Is he like? You mean like?
Just for this year, not for fantasy, just to win football games this year. I don't think Ben would make my top 10, and I haven't like thought it out, but I don't think he'd.
Knowing what we know now, or like we know he's fully healthy, or
knowing what we know right now today.
It's hard to put him in your top 10 because of what you said. That like, it's just an unknown. But if he's healthy, he's definitely in my top 10 for that.
Okay. All right. What the hell? Let's spend a few minutes. So let's just talk about a top 10.
It's not that easy, though. Go
ahead.
What's that? Said you're right. It's not that easy. But I will say, like, looking at these quarterback lists for fantasy, there's a few guys I'd rather have Ben over, like, leading my team if he's healthy than like Kyler Murray or Josh Allen. For me personally, Daniel Jones.
Okay. So, all right. So I'll take Mahomes over him. I'll take Lamar Jackson right now over Ben. I don't know. Would you agree with me? Just going into this year?
Agree with you. I mean, he just won the MVP.
Yeah. So Lamar Jackson. I'll still take my boy Aaron Rodgers over Ben Roethlisberger.
I will too.
Drew Brees?
Yeah.
I'll still take Brees over Roethlisberger.
Close.
That one's, I wouldn't say it's distant, but I can say it that it's not a question for me, although I don't disagree that it's close.
You know, Roethlisberger might not make the top 10, but I don't think that's because of him. I think it's because of his unknowns. And there's just guys like, yeah, I'd rather have Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Ryan, Brady, Wentz, even maybe. So yeah, he probably wouldn't make the top 10, but he's a guy that if he's healthy and has a good year, could make the top 5, in my opinion.
Okay. I'm just curious because I'm writing it down. Matt Ryan, I would agree. I would take Matt Ryan over Ben, not by a huge margin, but I would.
Agreed. Not by a huge margin at all, but I would. Although I like the cut of Big Ben's jib more than I like of Matt Ryan. Like, I think that Big Ben gets it done more than Matt Ryan does.
I mean, Ben's been to the Super Bowl 3 times and won 2. So, I mean, I get your point on that one. And when he's lost in the past, well, he's weird because he doesn't beat Brady and Manning a lot in his career, but he beats everybody else. But everybody else kind of sucks, and those other 2 are really good. So it's like this weird spot for him to be in.
Yeah, very weird spot for him to be in. I will give like him credit. Like they've been like, you know, for the past few years, well, not like last year or not like the past 2 years, but before that, they were really, you know, a top, like you thought about the AFC, it was, you know, the Patriots, the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Chiefs, I feel like, you know, I guess post Peyton Manning.
Would you take Dak right now going into this year or Ben just to win games?
I mean, definitely Dak with Ben's health problems, but not so much if we knew Ben was healthy.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think it's easy to say Dak right now, but I can understand why somebody would want Big Ben before him. I can see your logic. How about Matt Stafford?
I mean, I think I'd rather have Big Ben. I think that's a very close one, but I don't
like regular season. I'd rather have Kirk Cousins, but I would definitely take Big Ben in a playoff game right now. No questions about it.
What about Jimmy G?
I mean, if I'm playing to win playoff games. Give me Ben Roethlisberger. You know, San Fran got to the Super Bowl last year, but I think y'all know that he didn't really do much, did Jimmy? And when he was asked to do something, it wasn't great.
No, these guys aren't close to top 10 anyway. So you're right. I stand corrected that he's definitely not a top 10 guy. But
it's close though, right? Like, I mean, we're at 9 right now.
Brady?
Yeah, I put Brady up there.
Okay.
I forgot about him for a second, but he's definitely up there.
Wentz?
You could put Wentz up there.
I think
he always hurts. Yeah. I don't know. It's just an interesting conversation. Clearly, we don't really need to go through this any farther. And obviously, we were here to talk Le'Veon Bell, and I think we made our points known and got a little off subject because, quite frankly, we just don't get to talk sports enough these days.
Not gonna lie, when you look at the quarterback list, it does seem pretty deep and good right now across the NFL.
And I didn't even throw in my boy Josh Allen or your 2020 MVP Sam Darnold.
What about, okay, for real though, we'll finish on this guy, Big Ben or Ryan Tannehill?
Big Ben. I like Ryan Tannehill with Tennessee because he excels within the play action. But when it comes down to it, a lot of guys can excel in the play action, right? I mean, it is easier to throw the football when everybody's trying to stop the running back.
For sure. Man, talking about this stuff is getting me hyped for NFL. For sure. Like, I'm like getting all pumped.
Dude, I'd be hyped for soccer right now if we had something to watch. And I hate soccer. Like, just give me some sports, man.
Yeah, no. Amen.
Not all of us sit around all day watching Korean baseball and League of Legends. And I know you don't even really like those.
I don't, especially the Korean baseball.
Got it. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.